Can a food fight turn into class warfare? With another jobs report looming, Speaker Pelosi is hammering on the idea that food stamps create jobs. Nancy Pelosi, speaking in her hometown of San Francisco, responding to comments by former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, who urged fellow Republicans to cast themselves as the party of paycheck and the Democrats as the party of food stamps. Take a listen.
People are being driven to food stamps because the Democratic policies are killing their jobs. People don't voluntarily say, I want to give up a paycheck so I can get food stamps.
If you want to create jobs, the quickest way to do it is to provide more funding for food stamps and have unemployment insurance.
So is Nancy Pelosi right? And more to the point, do voters believe her? Fox News contributors Monica Crowley and Leslie Marshall. Well, Leslie, first to you. I mean, we can go back on, I don't want to bore people on studies because there are studies on both sides of this. I've done my research, and you get as many people saying that she's right as not, because economists are all in their head. But the voters are what count. Voters don't seem to believe in these government solutions in terms of getting the economy back on its feet. Do you agree or not?
Well, I would say that the perception by the voter, by the middle class, the majority of Americans, is that. You are correct there, David. But I would also say that that doesn't help the perception of the Republicans with what Newt Gingrich has said, because the Republicans want to be embraced by the middle class and want to be embraced by minority voters coming up in November and in 2012. And they're not going to get that with classist-type talk. Remember, there are people in the military that have food stamps, and certainly there are more people now that have applied for food stamps because of the current economic and unemployment situation.
Yeah, but Monica, the point is, what would you as an individual rather? I think even Nancy Pelosi, Monica, would agree that most people would not like to take food stamps. I mean, if you have a choice, you would rather be a person of a paycheck than the food stamps, correct?
And it's a question of dignity. It's a question of economic sustenance, David. Look, the president who put food stamps into place was my old boss, Richard Nixon. And when I worked with him during the last years of his life, he said to me that his biggest domestic policy regret was, in fact, the food stamps program. And when I asked him why, he said, because once you give away a government program, you can never take it back, and it creates increasing dependency. And so what you have now is the Democratic Party deliberately expanding the base of people who are dependent on the federal government. I understand we're in dire economic straits here, but this administration and this Democratic Party in the Congress have done nothing to improve the economic situation. Actually, their policies have made it worse, and the dependency is growing and growing.
Well,
and that,
Leslie,
I think, is by design.
You know, there was a time, and it wasn't that long ago, when Democrats were agreeing with Republicans that the sense of dependency was crippling. You don't want to create a sense of dependency. Granted, sometimes you want to have a safety net there for people who fall down and need some help getting up, but you don't want them to slip into an era of dependency. Clinton was as opposed to that as Ronald Reagan was.
Oh, no, I'm with you. And if it's not food stamps, it's, welfare, which, Tommy Thompson and Clinton were on board together with a workfare program. I would agree that society doesn't have the stigma attached to food stamps and some other social programs like that. But see, the government here, left or right, and especially Democrats, are sort of in a bind. If they don't help these people, then what happens? Because these are programs in place that have been in place long before Obama, and these people in the House and the Senate were in their positions.
You asked a question, then you went over it. The answer is you try to provide work in any way, shape, or form you can. And so far, the administration's been stumbling around for the right formula there. You want people, I mean, what Clinton did was turn welfare into workfare. That was it. And a lot of his cabinet members, the liberal members of his cabinet, were very upset about that. They thought that that was cruel, an unusual punishment for the people on welfare. Clinton didn't, and neither did the Republicans in Congress. Do we have to go over that debate again?
No, it's not that we have to go over that debate again. I actually agreed with the former President Clinton on that. I do think that there need to be stipulations, and I do think there needs to be more regulation of the programs in place. But remember, David, it's odd to me that people on the right will say they want less government. Why do they want the government to create jobs? It's really not the government's responsibility to create jobs.
You're misunderstanding what I said. We don't want the government to create jobs. Even President Obama says he doesn't want the government to create jobs. We want an opening for the private sector. sector. We want to stimulate the private sector by lowering taxes, lowering regulations so that they can expand, Monica.
Exactly. And you know, when you've seen the pattern of policies come out of this White House and Congress over the last year and a half, remember when Obama and the Congress came in early 2009, we had an employment crisis. It has grown worse. And what they have done is actually try to band-aid it with all of these social policies, jobless benefits extender bills, food stamps bills, and all of these other social policies. But they're not getting to the root of the problem, which is the jobless situation. And the way you fix that and get people off food stamps and off unemployment benefits
is get the government out of the way.
To create
TJ
jobs.
Rogers said it just a moment ago. Just get the government out of the way. We hear it from the big business guys and the small business folks. Monica Crowley, Leslie Marshall, thank you very much for coming in. Coming up on deck, we score.